The New York Jets fell to 2-5 the other day in just a really, really ugly game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they let the Pittsburgh Steelers score 37 points. And mind you, this is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who's notorious for not being great on offense and excelling on defense. 37 points in their 30-7-15 loss. And I think it's about time that we just say it as it is. Aaron Rodgers is he's probably not a top like 13 quarterback. I think that that's just shown for itself. And I said this when he tore his Achilles tendon. Look, if you look it up, you look at the stats, you look at everything else. No athlete ever over the age of like 28 or 29 has ever come back from the tear of the Achilles tendon. Nobody it never come back and at least been, had at least the same amount of production or better. It just doesn't happen. It's an extremely serious injury. He's not the same guy. Still throws a pretty ball, but he's not the same quarterback that he was back in the day. And that's for sure. And it doesn't help that the organization is just so dysfunctional. I mean, it's just the moves that they continue to make. Like it started with obviously Aaron didn't have a lot of respect for Salah. He was going on, he was like missing OTAs, which already was causing issues. He was kind of backlashing the media a little bit. And it was dysfunctional from the start, but I said, I mean, you have a good enough roster where they still should be in a position where they're going to win a good amount of games. I thought I figured that they would probably sneak into the playoffs. If not, maybe miss it by a game or so. I had them at like 10 wins. But I think it's safe to say at this point the season's over for them. But then you ran into it isn't talked about much, the Hassan Reddick thing that was cleared up today. Kind of a last-ditch effort at this point. I mean, at that point, with where the season's going, you shouldn't have even paid him. But you had that issue, and then obviously they decide to fire Robert Saleh after his defense performs really well against a Minnesota team that's scoring 40 on everybody uh, in a game where Aaron Rodgers just played terrible. That Minnesota game, go back, watch those interceptions. They're all bad. They're all really, really poor interceptions. One of them's overthrown. One of them's terribly underthrown. And one of them, he's just read. The guy just reads him pre-snap, takes to the house. There's just something off with it. The firing of Salah really made me lose a lot of respect for that organization because it was just such a move that it's like he is doing his job on his side of the ball. That's the way that I see it for the majority of it. Like the obvious problem was the offense wasn't running that smooth, and Nat Hackett's just not fit to be an OC at this point. And just because Aaron needs his guys there, he's going to stay, and he's still somehow on the roster, and Salah's not. But look, take a second to look. Look at how the defense has been since Salah's been gone. It hasn't looked great. 37 points, Pittsburgh Steelers. Then you go out and you trade for Devontae Adams. I knew it the second that I heard that he was in the trade market. It was 99% for me that he was going to go to the Jets because they seem like somebody that would make this move. It just and it's Aaron's guy, and he's going to get what he wants. And Aaron's practically the head coach of this team. Like, do you think that the interim or anybody else is batting an eye to what he's saying? No, he is making a lot of the moves there. And it doesn't help that you have an owner that allows it. You have an owner that allows it. So hands are tied at this point. This is a bad football team. Maybe you can call them average, but look at it. They might win more games last year with Zach Wilson, Boyle, and those guys than they do with Aaron Rodgers and this pretty loaded roster now. The Garrett Wilson thing, I did want to note. I think he's a good player. I think he's a little bit overrated in my opinion. I do still think he's a great player, and I think some of it is because Aaron Rodgers isn't able to. He really hasn't had like a top 13 quarterback to throw the ball to him his entire career. So that goes without saying. But I think that he's a little overrated within people's views. He's still young, still a young player. he wasn't able to cover it. What I will say is it does say something when you bring in another number one receiver if you think you have a one. It means it's can only be one of two things. One, which is the most obvious one that I would like to believe, is that they simply just got him because Aaron Rodgers told him to do it. That's one. The other one is that they don't trust Garrett Wilson as a bona fide one receiver, which I also think is kind of weird. That's, in my opinion, the only two things it could be. Probably is the first one, but the other one, I just from knowing the NFL, from like looking around, kind of seeing trends and stuff. That's a question that popped in my head. But yeah, it is just weird with this team that it's kind of predictable. Robert Saleh's gone. The defense is bad. Well, not bad, but the defense is just regressing, and the offense just hasn't looked good. Aaron Rodgers isn't the guy that he used to be, and now you're 2-5. And I'll say it here right now: they're not making the playoffs. Give that dream up. They're not making the playoffs, and I don't know what you do at this point. Like, what do they what more can they really do? Brought in Devontae Adams. They supposedly have this great defense that is now kind of digressing because Robert Saleh, their leader, their guy, their core coach that built that defense, is gone, and they're regressing. It just kind of a lot of like just Mickey Mouse moves being played by this Jets team. It's like if you play it properly, Aaron is out there in the media. He's blaming everyone else except for himself. You got to take responsibility at some point. It just, I mean, if I was a Jets fan, I would be terribly frustrated. Terribly frustrated. Gosh, it would be really tough for me to watch those games if I was a Jets fan because you have the talent there. The Jets have the talent. They're just not delivering on it.